The film begins with a man in his underwear wandering into a forest looking confused. At the same time, a woman makes a 911 call saying her husband has gone missing in the woods. Another caller reports being trapped in a room and unable to exit, followed by a third caller who mentions seeing several people standing still in front of a door. The scene transitions to a classroom where Mr. Johnson is preparing to oversee the SAT exams for his students, including Lizzie, Ash, Rory, and Jake. He collects everyone's phones and secures them in a cabinet to prevent cheating. As the exam starts, Jake tosses a note intended for Lizzie, but it accidentally lands on Ash's desk. She picks it up and discovers that Jake is inviting Lizzie to hook up afterward. Noticing the commotion, Mr. Johnson reminds the students to concentrate on their tests. Shortly afterward, the phones locked in the cabinet start ringing incessantly, creating a distraction during the exam. Mr. Johnson receives a call, and upon answering, he looks visibly shaken by the conversation. He instructs Rory to keep an eye on the students before quickly leaving the room. Time passes without his return, and the ringing phones heighten the students' anxiety. When Jake can't stand it anymore, he attempts to open the cabinet, prompting Rory to urge him to stop. Suddenly, an announcement comes over the speaker instructing the students to lock themselves in the classroom and stay put. The nervous announcer's shaking adds to the students' panic. They switch on the radio to find out what's happening outside, hearing alarming news reports about something that has landed on Earth, with the military responding. Moments later, gunshots ring out and a dead bird crashes against the classroom window. Frightened, the group breaks into the cabinet to retrieve their phones, discovering numerous missed calls and texts from their families. During this chaos, Ash begins to have strange hallucinations and leaves the classroom, followed by her friends. They are shocked to find the hallway deserted, with no one around. The group soon encounters a bizarre door blocking the hallway. When they throw objects at it, the door unexpectedly pulls them inside. Fearful, they hesitate, but Ash, curious about the door, suggests they explore it. Her suggestion unnerves the others, prompting them to leave, yet Ash remains captivated by the door. Just as she is about to enter, Lizzie suddenly appears and pulls her back. However, Ash misreads Lizzie's intentions and leans in to kiss her, which Jake notices. Furious at Ash for touching his girlfriend, he confronts her, leading to a heated argument. During the scuffle, Ash accidentally shoves Jake toward the door, pulling him and Rory in as well. Feeling guilty, she decides to enter the portal herself, leaving Lizzie alone in the hallway. The scene shifts to the city, now completely abandoned after millions of people have vanished. A news reporter explains that while many have disappeared, some have miraculously returned from the door. Scientists are investigating this phenomenon through Project Knockers, where volunteers are sent to the mysterious door to report back on their experiences. In the next scene, we meet 3 volunteers, a couple named Vince and Becky, along with their friend Patrick. They are informed that they can only stay beyond the door for 12 minutes, as staying longer might put them at risk of being controlled by it. The trio arrives at a house in spacesuits, where they encounter the strange door. As they approach, each hears eerie sounds emanating from within. Once inside, they find themselves in a vast house with 3 doors arranged in a spherical layout. Becky suggests they split up to explore and gather information. Later, we see Patrick investigating the unusual space and reporting his findings to his superiors. He soon hears someone crying and follows the sound. He reaches a room where he finds a woman in bed, surrounded by flowers. When he updates his superiors and asks for her name, she introduces herself as Rose, chastising him for forgetting her so quickly. This leaves Patrick confused, as he has never seen her before. Meanwhile, Becky discovers a white kitchen with utensils oddly arranged. She notices an empty cradle moving on its own, and when she stops it, she sees a shadow on the door. Meanwhile, Vince steps through the 3rd door and tells his team that the room is tastefully decorated. He spots a clock on the wall showing 3 o'clock, along with a statue. In another room, he finds a clock that reads 6 o'clock and the same statue, though its expression has changed. Continuing on, he discovers yet another clock displaying 9 o'clock, with the statue now having square-shaped eyes. Back with Patrick, he tries to engage with the mysterious woman, but she suddenly has a seizure and begs for his help. Patrick rushes to her aid, but she soon starts laughing, revealing it was a ruse. She then implores him not to leave her again, and despite his confusion, Patrick hesitantly agrees to stay. With just 5 minutes left, flowers begin to fill Patrick's helmet, much to the woman's amusement. As the petals engulf him, he struggles for breath and ultimately dies. Meanwhile, Becky has a hallucination where she sees herself with Vince, pregnant and happy. This vision overwhelms her with emotion since she lost her child in reality. The illusionary Vince tries to convince her that this is her true life, but Becky rejects it and shoots him with a phaser gun. Elsewhere, Vince tries to find his way out and unexpectedly encounters 2 other versions of himself. They argue over who is the real Vince, and in a dark twist, the 2 imposters somehow alter his spacesuit, making him look identical to them. Soon after, Becky arrives and is bewildered by the sight of multiple Vinces. Each one claims to be the real Vince, and an irritated Becky quickly shoots one, noticing he's wearing winter clothes despite it being summer. Still uncertain about the other two, she interrogates them about their lives and relationships. Eventually, she identifies the true Vince, but something overtakes her, leading her to shoot him. This act fills her with remorse, prompting her to contemplate ending her own life. In the following scene, we are introduced to a scientist named Jamal Atkins, who is listening to the morning news on the radio. The report reveals that half of the world's population has vanished because of the door. We also learn that Project Knockers has been a dismal failure, with nearly all volunteers failing to return. Consequently, the public is urged to contact the police immediately if they see the door. After this, Jamal turns off the radio and makes his way to a nearby forest. He soon encounters one of the enigmatic doors and sets up his gear to try and communicate with it. After several attempts, the door finally responds, leaving him astonished. The door appears to have extensive knowledge about him, including his name and social security number. Jamal proceeds to ask the door a variety of questions, and it replies in a friendly tone, even referring to him as Buddy. Intrigued, Jamal inquires about the door's origins and intentions. It discloses that it hails from an advanced civilization and is here to observe humanity and document its existence. Later on, Jamal invites his fellow scientist Kathy to his home, and she arrives accompanied by her young boyfriend Leo. Jamal is initially wary of Leo, but ultimately decides to trust Kathy's assessment. He shares that he has discovered a door in the woods, which leaves both of them astonished. Leo suggests they should report it, but Jamal explains that not all doors are harmful. He recounts his successful communication with it, noting that it appears friendly and cooperative. They then head to the forest, where Jamal shows them the door. He sets up his equipment again to demonstrate how he interacts with it. Introducing Kathy and Leo, the door greets them warmly. Kathy is thrilled, recognizing the revolutionary implications of this discovery. Meanwhile, Leo remains unconvinced and steps away to make a call and report what he has found. Meanwhile, Kathy engages the door in conversation, asking for its name. The door reveals that it is called Lamej, which is Jamal spelled backward. Curious, Kathy inquires about its purpose, and Lamej explains that it has come to study humans and document their existence. This revelation excites Kathy, who believes that through Lamej, they can unlock the secrets of the universe. She tells Jamal that they can finally become the cosmic explorers they've always dreamed of. However, their enthusiasm is interrupted when a police officer named Ricky arrives, who happens to be Leo's friend. He immediately draws his gun, instructing Kathy to step away from the door, warning that it could be dangerous. He then arrests Jamal for interacting with the door instead of reporting it, which is against the law. When Ricky asks for Jamal's name, the door answers for him, revealing his identity, which astonishes the officer since he has never encountered a talking door. Before Ricky can fully comprehend the situation, Kathy strikes him with a branch, causing him to accidentally shoot Leo. In shock, the officer turns his gun on Jamal, prompting the scientist to plead for Lamej's assistance. In response, the door somehow hypnotizes Ricky, leading him to fatally shoot himself. Both Kathy and Jamal are devastated by the chaos that has unfolded, but also feel a sense of relief at their safety. The door then refers to them as friends and indicates that it's time for them to be refreshed. At that moment, they notice a flurry of celestial objects descending from the sky, igniting their excitement. In the next scene, we meet a streamer named Midnight Martin, who is in a video call with a parallel world expert named Dr. Alan Price. Alan seems unusually off, almost as if he's being manipulated by something. Martin questions him about the doors, their intentions, and what might come next. Alan explains that the emergence of the doors has transformed everything, leading to a cosmic evolution for humanity. He highlights that people are entering a new era as they adapt to a changed world. Despite this, Martin remains doubtful about the doors and their true purpose. He asks Alan if they should brace themselves for a fight for survival against the doors. Alan counters that there's nothing they can do to halt their influence, as the doors hold all the power and make the decisions. Unsettled by this, Martin inquires about how they should proceed. Alan replies that the only option is to wait for a refresh, to which Martin scoffs at the notion of likening humans to a web browser. During their discussion, the lights begin to flicker, leading to a brief network outage. Once the connection returns, Martin questions whether those who return from the door are changed, but Alan asserts that he already knows the answer. He then calls Martin by his real name, Paul, a detail unknown to anyone else. Shocked, Martin asks how Alan knows this, and Alan urges him to embrace the door, promising that all his fears and insecurities will be erased and refreshed. Afterward, Martin attempts to speak, but Alan anticipates his every word, only deepening Martin's confusion. In the final scene, something unexpectedly seizes control of Martin, causing him to scream in agony. Meanwhile, Alan watches with an unsettling smile, encouraging the streamer to accept the door. Amid frantic screams and erratic movements, Martin rips off his clothes. Suddenly, he was quiet and calmly walks upstairs. The film concludes with the broadcast cutting off and Alan welcoming him with a simple welcome. That's a wrap on today's movie recap. If you enjoyed the breakdown and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell icon so you never miss an update. Let me know in the comments what movie you'd like me to cover next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.